Hi, everybody, and welcome to Inclusion Starts Now, the podcast. I am your host, Kayla, and I am so excited. Today, we are going to listen to part one of a two-part episode because I had two people to interview, and I just, really like my short episodes. Today, we are going to be meeting Diana, and we are going to be talking about the recent executive order that was just recently signed, which I will quote from the presidential website. The executive order is to restore safety and order in American classrooms by ensuring school discipline policies are based on objective behavior and not DEI. So, we're going to break down some of the executive order that is all available online, and we'll be going over different ways to view behavior. And then I also have a bunch of resources for you to bring back to your school sites that will help way more than more disciplinary action. So I hope that you guys can learn a lot from this podcast. I hope that you can just learn a lot about the importance of relationships and communication and boundaries within the classroom and even within your own home, and why that is so important, and why DEI is important to recognize in school settings. So let's get on to the episode and welcome Diana. Okay, I feel like we're the same person. Um, so thank you so much, Diana, for being here. Can you give a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to just be here in general, but also specifically to talk about, what we're going to talk about today. But so my name is Diana Fannin. I am I'm currently a director of special education. I am a parent of a child with autism. So in the last 4 years, this has gotten particularly personal for me. And I am the founder of Disability Ed Pros, where I'm working to partner with parents and anyone else who wants me to partner with them to help navigate special education and work on advocacy and just kind of learn how to navigate I don't know, that sea of acronyms and just that world of special education where it can feel like you're speaking a different language as I often do. So that's the in a nutshell, but I started as a school psychologist and a general education classroom teacher, and then that's kind of how I ended up where I am today.
Oh,
So
cool. I didn't know that background. I didn't know that you were a teacher first
yeah.
and a school psychologist.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I found my way here. I wasn't I would say that general education or just teaching in general in an elementary school was not for me.
Yeah.
Um, but which is how I found school psychology because I loved connecting with the kids. I would always figure out what was going on at home. I always knew about their families. I always knew kind of the whys and the whats, but then the kind of the day-to-day of teaching just wasn't my jam.
Yeah.
So once I found school psychology, I didn't even really know it was a thing. And as soon as I found out about it, that was it for me. And then I worked a little bit in elementary, but mostly in high school and mostly in East and South LA. And so I worked a lot with our Black and Latino kids and a lot in lower income areas. And not exclusively, but that was kind of just my background. And it wasn't what I was familiar with, but I just sort of leading into what we're going to talk about today a little bit with it, which is the executive order.
Yeah.
Um, I had a mentor when I was doing my training. She was this really, I don't know if I can curse, but she was a badass. She was this woman,
You
this
can. That's
black,
fine.
I can. Okay, thank you. So this black woman, she was a school psychologist and she'd been doing it for a while. And she was the first person who spoke very directly to me. And we were working in a school in South LA, an elementary school, and she helped explain to me. She didn't help, she just told me very, very directly that when I was working with kids and when I was working with Black kids, and I think she may have been speaking directly about Black males at the time, she said, you need to look at their behavior differently. You need to know about their culture. You need to know where they come from. You need to know that the behavior is going to look different. And this was 20 years ago now, a little bit less maybe than 20 years ago. So this was before we'd all like all the books had come out and all of, again, I consider myself a strong advocate and a strong ally, but she just put it out there and she was like, you need to know, because if you're going to be working in these schools and on these campuses, you need to be an ally and you need to know that sometimes kids are going to stick out, but it's not because it's behavior. And
Yeah.
so she had this talk with me just almost in passing. Like it wasn't super deep. It was just, you need to know and you need to remember that and you need to think about that. And it stuck with me through all my work because I worked on campuses where a lot of Black students were in the minority and behaviors looked a little different, but not because there was any misbehavior or bad behavior. It was because culturally things were a little different, right? Kids may
Yeah.
be a little bit louder, or when they were expressing excitement, it looked a little different than a kid who came from a home where they may be taught to be a little bit quieter and to display their excitement in a different way. And I always remember that. And then I would watch how schools handled it. And 9 times out of 10, kids were getting in trouble for being loud
Yeah.
and nothing else. So this has always been like just something that I've kept with me and remembered and really felt like it was my job as
Yeah.
a white person to be an ally because I felt like I had this information that I'd been given and it was such a gift. So,
Yeah. Well,
so
I mean, my experience as a white person growing up with a white family in a very white area, I would say like being loud was very like frowned upon. Like it was, like if you're loud, you don't get to go do the things. Like you need to be kind of behaving, um, to this specific standard kind of thing. I do what I've noticed like with my own kids who are both just very little, when they get loud, I feel like it triggers this like fight or flight response because I'm just like, "Ah, why are you yelling?" Like, and it's like then my response is like, "Don't yell, like just talk to me." Where it's like, "Okay, they're yelling because they're upset and like, how can I teach them like to take a breath before they respond or how can I not get triggered by their behavior that is like a totally normal behavior for like what is happening in that situation." And
right.
like and again, they're like they're also experiencing a lot of like white culture as that is like who me and their dad is. But that is like such a great, I wish like more people got told that earlier off in their careers that like don't expect kids, like especially as a teacher, it's like you're taking in a bunch of different cultures and identities and behaviors. Like I think a dangerous thought process is to think that they're all gonna respond the way that you want them to respond, because that's not like a genuine response.
No. And I think that's such a good point because when I was teaching, the same thing happened to me because it's sort of like, and this is before I had learned about autism, before I had learned about other developmental disabilities or any disabilities, really. Because when I became a teacher, I didn't learn about that, right?
Yeah,
And, we're doing a better job now in some of our grad programs, but I didn't learn about anything, right, with students regarding students with disabilities. So as a 22 or 24-year-old teacher, in my first year of teaching, I knew what I knew and what I understood to be signs of respect. For example, and I'm using air quotes because it is not actually, it doesn't have anything to do with it, but I was used to giving eye contact, right? So this,
yeah,
I mean, talk about old school. But I learned
uh-huh,
very quickly from teachers who were very happy to help educate me that in many Latino households, it was not that at all. And in many other cultures, it's the same thing, which I have since learned. In some Indian cultures and some Asian cultures, same thing. You do not give eye contact, and that is the sign of respect. And so, again, at 24, I did not know that. So I'm asking kids to do things that are, this is not even talking about disabilities right now, right? This is
yeah,
just talking about culture. So I made that correction very quickly and felt like an idiot, but I didn't know, right? I didn't
yeah,
know any different. And even having been around quite a few different cultures during college, we never really talked about eye contact, right? It wasn't something that I learned.
yeah.
So
Because it's just
there
so
was
embedded. It's so
so
embedded
much
in
learning,
people's
right?
culture that
Yep.
we don't even think like what's normal to us is not normal to someone else.
Yeah.
And that is like that's hard to kind of keep relearning that.
Yeah. But I
Um,
think once you
yeah.
do, for me, once I started going through that process of everything I thought was one way or that everything had to be a certain way, once that sort of blew wide open for me, anything was possible. Right.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was cool with all of it. Right. Like it shifted for me. So those couple of conversations, like early in my teaching career, and then going into school psychology and having conversations like the one I did with my mentor that very first year, everything became okay. It's all fair game. So everyone gets to be who they are, how they need to be, and then we just need to figure out how to approach it within the confines or sort of the parameters of a school.
Yeah.
And then
And
it'll
it's
all start to make
doable.
sense, right? Like it doesn't mean that everyone gets to do everything they want, but how do you get to do what you need to do for you within that frame?
Yeah.
And it was actually totally liberating for me after being such a rule follower, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, and I think I still have times like with my, so now that I'm not in the classroom and I'm like at home with my kids,
Yeah.
there are times that I'm just like, okay, why am I saying no? Like, why am I getting so stressed out? Like, no one's in danger. This is
Yep.
like, it really is like I have to keep re-examining like what
Yep.
I'm doing. So I'm like, okay, that
And
like,
it
why
makes
am I being so
parenting
crazy
fun.
about this?
Isn't it fun for that? You get to go through all your own stuff every time
Yeah.
something comes.
Well, I'm excited to see what they're like. I mean, already they've done some things like, I mean, they're 4 and 3, and they've done some things where I'm just like, cool. Like, I don't feel like I learned how to do that till I was like in my 20s. So I'm glad
Right?
you guys are figuring that out. Well, yeah, I'm
It's
helping, but
right. It's incredible though. It's really incredible to sort of witness this exploration and to be part of it, but also to deal with your own like
yeah,
all your own stuff that comes up while it's happening and to be like and it is to instinctively say no to things because I've had the same thing happen. Why is it a no? There's no reason for it to be a no.
yeah.
And there's somebody on Instagram and I can't remember her name right now, but she did this post and I'll think of it by the end of it so we could even link it in your show notes. Not that I
Awesome.
need to, but she did a whole post about find the yes, basically, and her son had asked her to like sleep on the floor in a box. And
Oh, the busy toddler.
the busy toddler, thank
I
you.
love
Yes.
her.
And so that was always sort of my guidepost, even before I had kids, because I think that post was years ago.
Yeah,
And I've always kept that in the back of my head, which is like, why not? Right. And so
yeah.
of course, sure. It's not hurting anybody. It's not hurting him. He's happy. He's safe. Sure. Why not? Thank you.
I
That
love
was
that.
excellent. So that
I
was, but that
I
was sort
totally
of
love
like,
her.
yeah, that was kind of my guidepost for this. Like, I mean, there's other things I use, but that's definitely one of the things I always think about. And then I think about, and with teaching, and one of the things I've tried to talk to teachers about when it comes to discipline, and I don't even like the word discipline, but when it comes to behavior is a better way to say it in the
Hmm.
classroom. I think it's Brian Mendler, right? Do you follow Brian Mendler?
Maybe.
He was a former teacher and now he does like motivational speaking and stuff to other teachers. The one thing, like he says a ton of great stuff, but the thing that I think is the biggest takeaway is have the second to last word, right? Which is when you get into power struggles with kids, it never works. It doesn't work with your own kids. It doesn't work with kids in
Hmm.
class. And he like he'll talk like, can you please put this away? Thank you. And then walk away. Because when you wait to see and you wait to see it happen, and if they don't do it, or you stand there and you're saying, all right, are you gonna do it? Are you gonna do it? Are you gonna do it? Are you gonna do it?
Yeah.
Nothing good is gonna happen, right? You tell them, you walk away, and you go about your day. And if it doesn't happen, you deal with it later, or you talk about it at another time. But all you end up doing if you continue to engage in that is everything gets escalated, everything gets heightened, nervous
Hmm.
system goes into overdrive, like everything, people get dysregulated, adults and kids get dysregulated, and then nobody can have a conversation. And that's when everything gets out of whack. So that
Yeah.
is those two things. That's my best takeaway from like of late that I really loved is just the second to last word because I think we could try to package all kinds of cool systems, but really I think it's kind of just saying shut up, really. Like just
Yeah.
stop talking
It and
because
I love
right?
that. Cause
Like
and
we
I say
talk,
that a lot with like after even after you like ask someone to do something, just stop talking. Like I tell it's the 10-second rule is usually what I tell people to do. That I'm
yep,
like, you say something and then you just don't talk for 10 seconds and just wait. Cause it's like they're going off of you. And I mean like as an adult, I used to do these videos that was like I did stuff to my partner that like teachers do to kids. And it was like, hand over hand or like kind of talking bad about them right in front of them, where it's like, well, they're not listening today. Like, all those. But I would do it to my husband. And I just thought it was really funny that, like, how many people responded just being like, yeah, that's not okay. Like, I do this. Like, I need to stop. Like,
right?
because you don't, like, there's like, it's just, that it's like, when we're the parents or the teachers, it's like we think that these kids are supposed to like be so obedient to us. But like that's not what we want. We don't want just like a bunch of obedient kids. Like we want
Right,
them to be like, and I was just telling someone today about like I want my kids to be critical thinkers. Like I don't remember people really like pushing me to like question authority. That it was just kind of like, oh, I guess I just have to do this. But no, I'm like, even though it's annoying for me too, I'm like, I want you to question. I don't want you just to like, you know, be obedient. Like if I'm giving you a rule, you should ask why I'm asking. Like, why do I not want you to run in the street? Yeah, like let's talk about that. Like, and what you said about discipline, I actually just had a blog post come out Thursday,
okay,
which actually will be tomorrow. But
okay. Oh,
I just had a blog post come out that's about the word discipline because I don't like that word either. I feel like it's this really it's like this word that's making it sound like you're like you have to get in trouble. Like you did something, so you have to get in trouble for it
yep,
instead of like having a conversation, finding a way to like work through it and like how not to do it again.
right,
Because like we can still set boundaries and have conversations, and like there can still be rules in different places that need to be followed, and there could still be consequences. That was the word. I was like, a
yeah,
consequence is there are natural consequences, and then there are consequences that like happen when you don't respect the area. But like, why do we need, and I guess shifting to the whole executive order,
right,
like why is discipline where we want to put focus? Like to say, and I mean, I guess it wasn't just adding discipline, but it was taking away DEI and adding discipline, um,
yeah,
which just makes no sense to me at all, which is why you are here because you did a post like the day after that executive order came
yeah,
out, and I just loved your post. Do you want to kind of summarize it
yeah.
for us?
Yeah, and I think I think one of the things that sort of the gist of the post, well, I think my biggest pet peeve with this post and with everything that's been said lately is that we're talking about it being common sense. It's not common sense, right? I'm so concerned because it's talking about the equity practices as if they're discrimination, right? As if somehow trying to correct bias is unfair to white students. And I think we can all agree that there is no, well, I guess we can't all agree. I shouldn't say that. We can't all agree, but there is no suggestion, there is no data to suggest that white students are being discriminated against by anything that's happening because the numbers show, and they still show currently that Black students and Latino students, my post was mostly focused on Black students, but Black and Latino, but still more Black students are being suspended, expelled, and just disciplined in general. And so some of the statistics I shared, Black students, this is from some of these are 2021, but that 15% of enrollment for Black students, and this is from the national data, 15% of enrollment, but 33% of arrests and 28% of referrals to law enforcement. With students with disabilities, there's 17% of enrollment and 29% of out of school suspensions. So the Black students with disabilities are often most at risk, so that intersectionality can compound things, basically, is what we're dealing with. And then I highlighted California specifically because I could easily find that data and it just gave me a state to work with. Um, Black male students had a 19.1% suspension rate. Black females were 12.5% when the state average was 6.7%. So it's just overall, there's a significantly higher percentage of students of color. And again, the percentages I shared were Black students, but we see it with Latino students as well. And it's really only Latino and Black. We don't see it in any other culture, ethnicity, or race who are being suspended, expelled, disciplined, and we see law enforcement involvement as well at a significantly higher percentage, and it is alarming. So
Yeah.
there is no discrimination against white students. It is not happening. Simply putting guardrails for or cautionary measures, whatever we want to call it, in place for alarmingly high numbers and practices and discriminatory practices is not discriminating against white students. I think that's where this DEI like misunderstanding comes in, you know? And
Yeah.
so that's sort of part of that's a lot of what I talked about in it. Um, I think I also mentioned, and I'm not looking, I have some notes, but I talked about there's also removal from the classroom, right? And sort of we can't always talk about that impact because that's not always quantifiable. Like we talk about days out of the classroom, or we talk about that they'll be suspended from the classroom, but what we can't talk about or we can't always predict is that if they're out of the classroom, then what happens, right?
Mhm.
So we can't always predict those I'm not even sure what to call them. I'm sure there's a word in the research somewhere, but there's costs that are unknown because not only are they somewhere else when they should be in school, but then they lose instructional time. So then they come back to school and then they have to like how are they going to be welcomed back to school? Are they being welcomed back to school? Or do they feel like they're lost then when they come back? So that's how,
Yeah.
and I think this is something you wanted to talk about, that school to prison pipeline, right? How does it start and how do we stop that? You know, how do we stop our
Yeah.
kids from, so when we look at the makeup of prisoners and the makeup of those and the demographics, it doesn't start when they're 18. It starts when they're
Yeah.
8. And
I
and
mean,
our
there,
schools are
yeah.
are a huge part of it.
I mean, there was a statistic that came out that talked about how many prisoners are dyslexic. And it's like dyslexic, like, first off, that is just one disability that,
Right.
like, to be tracked. But can you imagine being a student who can't read and just everyone's getting frustrated at you? And then you're having behaviors or you're trying to like deflect that you can't read because now
Yeah.
you're in third grade and you still can't read the
Yeah.
books because no one has figured out that you're dyslexic. Like,
Yeah.
and that's, and dyslexic is like pretty well known. Like, there are
Yeah.
other disabilities out there that like make it harder to read. I mean, my own partner just got diagnosed with ADHD and he said he's he's just learning all this stuff about ADHD now and he's like so many years of school like he endured with a very smart like his mom's an AP Chem teacher and he was just like, you know, why is reading so hard for me? Like, why do I
No,
have to read so slow? Like, why? And I mean, he was a good student, like, because, but he had to work like so
twice as hard,
hard.
3 times as hard in order to get to
Yeah.
the same end result without understanding.
Yeah. And he just like never knew why. And they even told him when he got his ADHD diagnosis, they're like, just be prepared. You're going to kind of go through like the layers of
Like the
grief.
grief cycle, basically,
Yeah.
right? Like the,
Because they were like, you're going to have these feelings of just like, you know, I'm in my mid 30s. Like, how did I miss so many years of this? How did nobody notice? So it's like to think how many prisoners or how many people have ended up in prison because they have a disability that nobody was able to see,
Yep.
one or two parents who might have not had the education to recognize a disability. Maybe they're working, maybe there's one parent, like so
Or
many things can be stacked up against them.
a parent came to the school and the school didn't listen, or
Yeah,
the
they're
parent
like,
kept
no,
asking, because
just
we know it's not
behave.
always, the school's not always a friendly place. And I don't mean that in like a
Yeah,
mean way, but it's not always easy, right? Like it's not
yeah,
always easy. Like you could have nice people at your school, but it's not always easy to get your message across. And then sometimes you don't have nice people at the school, right?
yeah,
Like it just really depends. Like there's every school is so different, every school district is so different. Figuring out how to communicate with a school, figuring out like how to get anything done within a school system is really complicated.
yeah.
So if you and there are some, and the cultural norms are very different within schools as well. So
Yeah.
you have I have experienced that in working with families, right? Which is some cultures will say, "Oh, the school knows everything. They're the experts. We should accept whatever they say." And so they won't
Hmm.
argue. And I'll sometimes, even when I was a school psychologist, I'd be like, "No, no, 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 no. No, no, no. Mama, you gotta let's take a minute. Are you sure that you want to sign?" Like I would literally be like
Yeah.
arguing with the parent to like get them to try to disagree. I mean,
No,
I don't
I
know.
actually that was my first job. My first teaching job was it was like I think like 70% of the school was Filipino. And it was just very different of like I mean before IEP meetings I'd be like, "Hey, so like this is what we're fighting for, right? Like I can't say anything. I'm the teacher. I can show all the data to prove that we can do this, but like if
Right.
you want your child, in more general ed settings, like you need to say it. I'll support you, but like I
Yeah.
can't be the one leading this because this is your kid." Like, and so it was a lot of those kind of conversations because it's kind of weird. You're in this IEP meeting, you're supposed to, when the school culture, like if the district culture is like, no, we need to save money and not do, whatever it is, like it can get iffy and weird. And I guess that's like what because like when I've been doing so much research on this executive order that I was just like I kind of got to a point where I'm like, really, like how much can this really change at a school? Like I think the what really it's going to be is like schools that already aren't for inclusion are going to be like, great, bye, like, let's go back to what was really working before. Where like I think the schools who are really inclusion focused, I think they're gonna keep pushing. Like I don't think this is gonna like really deter them. Um, and maybe I'm wrong.
So
I'm really hoping. What do you think?
I don't know because I think that the issue is that the settings offered in school districts shouldn't change because teachers want them to change. The settings should be offered based on what the student needs, right? So
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to. Like, because I've been on the side of those discussions where we talk about like, do somebody wants a mild mod SDC, but like who needs it? Why are you asking for that, right? Like, is there a student who needs that?
Yeah.
Right? And so that's how these discussions should go. Should. I don't know why I'm doing air quotes. Emphasis. I want to do an emphasis. I don't know how to
Yeah.
emphasize with my hands. But like,
Maybe scream louder. I don't know.
right? I have a toddler sleeping in the room next door, so can't scream. But
Don't scream. Yeah, that's
right.
bad.
But I think that the fundamental misunderstanding, like everything comes down to it's a fundamental misunderstanding by teachers, or a lack of knowledge, or a lack of training, or like because I don't want to say lack of willingness, because I don't know what's in their hearts and what's in their heads, right? So when people are requesting for different settings, when really we should be aiming for gen ed, and a lot of
Hmm.
districts like the one that I've been with, we keep a couple SDCs because there are some parents who request it. And
Yeah.
for the continuum, we keep that. Um, it is. and it can be useful, but it isn't, it's still, every child should be able to function within the gen ed setting. But then when we talk about it as far as this executive order, and we talk about it when it comes to behavior and it comes to taking away sort of protections or changing, sort of the DEI of it all, it shouldn't change. Like the district should still be doing what they're doing. And like in California, for example, we answer to the CDE. So the only thing that will change is if funding actually gets removed, right? And this is why it's all still a big waiting game. Um, if they find out if the federal government does attach funding to whatever we're doing in individual states or individual districts, then things will have to get different. But it still is up to each district to say, this is what we're doing and this is what we believe in. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's why this is scary. That's why it gets really, really scary
Yeah.
because I know I look at the data in my own district. We were getting weekly reports on which students were being suspended at higher rates. And this has been public. We talked about this in a board meeting, so I'm not sharing anything that like it's
Yeah.
publicly available to anything. So, I'm not unleashing confidential information, but it was happening at a significantly higher rate. Initially, it was Black students, but then it was Black students with IEPs. And so we started to change things. And I don't know that we did anything revolutionary, but sometimes just paying attention to it and being aware that it's happening is enough for everybody to be like, oh, whoa, wait, what? And I would get calls from principals saying, wait, do I have to suspend for this? And I'd be like, no. So you can develop an awareness, you can pay attention to things, and you can change things.
Yeah.
But people have to be willing to change things and to do better. And again, there has to be like that Zimmerman study.
You might even know more than me about the Zimmerman study, but it was basically that he watched teachers um, like communicate with students. I think there was even a part of it where he like tracked how much a teacher watched different students,
Yep.
and Black students got watched the most.
Mhm.
Um, and it doesn't matter even if there was no behavior. If all the kids were coloring happily, like all the teachers, and it didn't matter the ethnicity of the teachers. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Like white and Black teachers, like all different ethnicities of teachers, all focused more on the Black students,
Mhm.
even if they were doing well.
Yeah,
And even just like, I just thought that was like such a great um, study that showed like those internal biases that we have that
yeah,
that we're just preparing. We're like preparing for this child
to do
to do
something.
something wrong. And then it's also, I mean, I think about this a lot with like if kids are like usually like if there's a kid that usually doesn't break the rules and then they do break the rules, it's like, well, I don't know, you don't usually do it, but like maybe they just don't notice it. Where like,
We don't
you
give them
know,
a
if
chance.
this student's maybe a little bit louder and so you're just like noticing them more and then they do anything and you're just like, "Oh my God, okay, that's it. Get out. You got to get out of the classroom." Like,
They never get a chance.
yeah. Okay.
Well, so no, so that I think that's exactly right, which is like there's it's the looking for trouble, right? It's like we're looking to catch kids doing something, and in this case, we're looking to catch Black students, Black males, and specifically, I mean, Black females are on the radar obviously too, so I don't want to say that they're not,
Yeah.
but they are disciplined at a significantly higher rate. And it is across the board. This study was in California, but it is not just in California. It just happened with the horrible, horrible playground
Oh.
incident. Um, and this is not a discipline in schools, but it is an example of what happens when people are left, when they say the quiet parts out loud, when they are left to their own worst devices. And this is why, when we talk about why do we need a Department of Education? Why do we need oversight? This is why, because people are bad. Um, And when we're in schools, it is our job to take care of our kids, take care of our most at-risk children, and to make sure that they are okay, right?
Yeah.
And so um, we are not allowed to say things to kids that will make them feel bad, right? It is like teachers cannot do it. Kids, if they do it, need to
Yeah.
be corrected. That's why it's called bullying. And we are there to shape our children into being good, kind, decent human beings. And so our the adults in the school should not be the perpetrators of this, should not be responsible for any of this. So we need to track the numbers to make sure that they are not, right? It's
Yeah.
sort of as simple as that. Like it is our job. We are, yes, we're there for academic learning, but we are there for social emotional learning. We are there
Yeah.
for like we're not there to impart necessarily like particular values, but things that are universal, like I don't know, not being bad.
Like
I don't know
not,
what being good, being
yeah.
good is a little subjective, but there are things that we can agree on that we can teach.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we do teach that. And
Yeah.
some of this helps.
I feel like what I hear a lot from like parents and even teachers too, that like I think what they the I guess with discipline that they feel like they are trying to like rely on discipline to get the behaviors to stop in classes. And I think what you said is, yeah, like that's what you're saying is correct. That like teachers are supposed to be teaching social emotional learning as
Yeah,
they have kids with them all day, but that shouldn't also just fall on the teacher. Like that
that's
is,
correct.
it should be a communal thing. Like,
Yes.
and all the adults on campus should be able to like support children um in general. And I kind of feel like, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just feel like when I was growing up, there were more adults that like were very fast to like step in and like kind of parent you, where now I feel like especially as a parent, so many people will be like, oh, I like you don't have to share. I'm so sorry. Like they'll be like kind of trying not to ever step in. And I'm like, no, man, we're a village. If that is the rule
Well,
that your kid has, that's okay. Like we can learn to communicate and like, whatever. Um, which I feel like I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but I do feel like we are getting like more and more separated, and it's like executive orders like this that just feel like really strong, not strong, like really mean language um in an area that shouldn't have mean language. Like we
right.
shouldn't be using mean language towards children. They're children. If they're growing up and like going to prison, that's not their fault. So that's our fault for not.
But I don't think everyone agrees with you, Kayla. I think
Oh, I
that's the
don't think
fundamental
they do.
difference,
Yeah.
right? Which I have a problem with, right? I have a
Yeah.
fundamental problem with that, right? You agree. We agree. But
Yeah.
like I think like the story that I always tell is like it should be a village. The whole school should be the whole school should be committed, whole district, whole school really should be committed to every single student doing well. So
Hmm.
if any student ends up anywhere on campus instead of figuring out, this is my belief, like instead of somebody being mad that this kid is where they are, it should be, let's get you back to where you should be,
Yeah.
right? But that's not how it happens. Like the story that I always tell, and this is a long time ago, so anyone who's listened to me talk anywhere has heard this story that I'm about to tell. So now it's going to be recorded for everyone to hear.
Forever.
But this is one of my favorite kids, and it was one of those kids that everyone else was exhausted by. And so when I was like, no, 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 we're not done with him, somebody's like, well, then he's yours. And I said, great, I'll take him. So I was a school psychologist, so I did have a little more bandwidth than a classroom teacher. And so I can't remember what happened, but he started like coming to my office a lot. He was a ninth grader. So like we couldn't be done with him. That wasn't an option. And so, or maybe he was 10th grade. I can't, it was early on though.
Yeah.
Brilliant kid, so smart. He was black. And he, I can't remember what happened, but he came to my office. He was late to school. He was like, I'm not going to go to class because he was like, they're not going to let me in. I was like, oh my God, they're going to let you in. Okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go in, da da da. So I get him all hyped up to go to class. He comes back to my office 10 minutes later and he's like, they wouldn't let me come. So he walks into class, he's late, And they were like, nice of you to show up. And he left. So like it wasn't, this isn't actually the story that I was going to tell, but this is part of the problem. It's the same kid. I have a
Yeah.
lot of stories with him. Um, it's part of the issue, which is like, I don't think people understand how much of an impact adults, I don't think adults understand how
Yeah.
much of an impact every little thing they do has on a kid. And then this kid goes on to do something else. This kid, because this particular kid then went on later to, I got a call later, not long after that, to say, I need you to come out. He's on the roof. And I was like, that doesn't sound right. So they'd already called ambulances and everything. I'm like, guys, he's fine. I promise you. Now I know as an administrator that I can't just say that.
Yeah.
Like at the time, I was like, no, 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 I got this. I was naive and thought I could handle everything. But he just said he wanted some space and that was the only place he could find quiet. So he'd gone up to the roof. Um, but everyone, of course, had freaked out and called like a whole, 5 alarm fire. But, um, you know, everything I did would happen in my office with him, but it would never spread out into the classroom because every time he walked in, he felt or he heard how annoyed everyone was by the mere existence of him. Just the
Yeah.
fact that he showed up was annoying. But all we were telling him was he had to go to class. So we
Yeah.
could never get it to match up. And he
I
didn't
mean,
even do
it's
anything other
and
than
it's
just
kind
be
of
like,
like just how adults can kind of be this like bully
yeah,
when like I don't even think and I don't I think I know that I have definitely I my last couple years of teaching I'm not proud of. I definitely was on I call it like stupid mountain where I thought I knew everything that I needed to know about
yeah,
teaching. Everyone should be so thankful to have me as their teacher. Like that is where I was. And I do remember I was getting very strict with kids in a
yeah.
place that like and it was like I was still talking to them, but I just remember being like very mad. And I think that's a it's a hard I mean, I think that's hard to like kind of realize that you have that because like teaching is hard. Like
Oh, 100%.
you don't get paid a lot. You work way more than you're supposed to. Like and you're dealing with so many kids, so many different like emotions and challenges and like you're trying to stay regulated and like live a life. Like
Yeah,
it is, I think, a very hard job, but I think um it's like really important for teachers to be able to see like where like how far their boundaries are with their job because I think that's something like I've had teachers like friends who are just like no I have to stay and I have to finish all this and I it was just like why man like you
yeah,
got to reflect on this and leave like you are staying hours late every day like that's that's not okay for you. And then in return, like the kids don't get the best teacher
I agree
because
with that.
you're stressed and you're like taking it out on them. I mean, I could say even for my own kids, like I get these Kayla days, and if I don't get them, I am a huge bitch. Like I could go about 2 weeks without getting one. And if I go 2 weeks, it's like everyone in the house knows. I'm like, you guys, I need to just go outside by myself for like 2 hours. No
Yeah,
one talk to me. I just need to go look around a store where no one's going to be saying mom towards
yeah.
me. They can say mom towards other people. I don't care about that.
Right.
Um, but okay, we do need to finish up kind of soon, but I wanted to kind of touch on like your opinion on this because I have heard a lot of parents and teachers talk about like behaviors in classroom and they've kind of
Yep.
talked, like post-COVID, kids just have like these really big behaviors and people really don't know what to do to like help support these kids and help to
Yeah.
support their teachers, the staff. Um, because in my own inclusion little brain, I'm like, no, guys, we like your mindset is wrong. Like your mindset
Yes.
is wrong to like blame COVID. Like where instead it's like we can recognize that COVID happened and they did
Yep.
miss out on really important like social years. How are we going to help them? It's
Yes.
not like blame COVID and it's like, well, that year's just weird. We'll see you later. Good luck in life. Like but
I
I've had a
agree with
lot of
you.
parents and teachers say this where they're just like, yeah, there's a bunch of behaviors like we can't do inclusion. And it's like, how did you get from there to there? So do you feel like you see that? in the
Yes.
schools that you work with? And what can we
Yes.
do about it?
So yes, it is. I hear it from everyone, not even just in my district, but from everyone I talk to. It's like, oh, well, it was COVID and that's what's happened. And I'm like, COVID was a long time ago. And I think, honestly, I think that this may be a controversial or an unpopular opinion, but I think the kids who were most impacted by COVID were the ones who were in like high school. Because they were the oldest, they had the most going on, they had the stuff that they would miss out on.
Yeah,
So, and I don't think our elementary school kids, they're so resilient and they pop back so quickly. Um, and I'm not saying there was zero impact, but I am saying that it is unlikely to have a lasting impact on our kids.
yeah,
Um, like people would say things about my son. Oh, it's so sad he has to grow up in COVID. I'm like, what are you talking about? He doesn't know anything different. He's fine. Like,
yeah,
nothing. He doesn't know any different. He now has a life mostly without masks, and that's fine too. So I think it is not nothing, but not everything, I guess, is my way of sort of addressing it.
yeah,
Now, I do think people may have experienced at home some challenges due to COVID. And I don't know that that was school specific. I think there were systems challenges, right? When you're home, you're living with you have parents at home, you have kids at home, you're doing school. That was challenging.
yeah,
So I don't think that is specifically like school related. I think it's just everything happened. So maybe you found out some challenges in your parent-child relationship. Maybe there was a grandma-child relationship or guardian, whoever. I think that can maybe poke some holes that take longer to solve that aren't school related, right? So
yeah.
again, I'm not saying COVID didn't cause problems, but I don't know that it was specifically school related. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, I totally think so. I mean, how many, like the divorce rate, didn't that kind of shoot up? And
Right.
like
So
there
when
were
you're
there were
forced,
problems. It was hard. It was
yeah,
hard for, I mean, I was pregnant during
yeah, me too.
yeah. I mean, I was, even though looking back at it, I have really enjoyed that I was pregnant during COVID because it really like everything was virtual. I didn't have to like walk around 9 months pregnant. So I kind of actually lucked out. I feel like that's perfect timing.
Yeah,
But
and I loved it. My best friend and her husband and her kids lived with me because they were remodeling their house. So we had my little three-bedroom apartment was very full of life. And so I
yeah.
had six other people living with me while I was pregnant and then a little baby for a little while.
Oh
So it
my
was super
gosh.
fun.
But it wasn't like that for everyone, is what we're,
No, I know. I like, which
we
is what I'm,
digress.
right. And
Yeah.
so I think that COVID itself, like, sure, universal impact, school specifically, behavior specifically, no. I don't think that's what's happening. So with the behaviors, I think that I don't know that behaviors have changed across the country or across the world or across anywhere. I think that in districts where we're more inclusive, maybe they're seeing things they wouldn't have seen. But I can say that, like, in my district, for example, we're being more inclusive. But the only thing that's really shifted in elementary is we have two fewer segregated classrooms.
Yeah.
So I don't know that that much has shifted,
Yeah.
right?
So
So
what would you say then are like what should we,
what
so
should we do?
people listening, like teachers,
What do you do?
people higher up, yeah, like what can we do to like basically help make an inclusive culture at our school?
So I think what you just said, that's the first step, and that's the hardest thing to do. And there isn't an easy answer for it, which is like, so first, I think you've got to get everybody at school on board. So if you're one of the people, if you're one of the teachers who is excited about it, interested in it, and you want it at your school, then you've got to talk to your coworkers, you got to talk to your colleagues. Because if you are a lone wolf or like a lone teacher or a lone parent, so parents and teachers, talk to your colleagues, talk to the other parents, and get them with you on it. And if you're a parent or a group of parents, talk to your principal, start having like information nights, start talking about inclusion, start talking about the advantages of inclusion. Ask us, we'll come do it for you. But it is like it because it is such a huge advantage for everyone because kids are kids are trained, kids are born, kids are naturally accepting of everyone. They just are. It only happens later in life when they stop being accepting. So when you bring up kids in a classroom with kids with disabilities, kids without disabilities, they're used to it. My son is in a classroom with just the most like I can't use words right now, but with the most lovely array of kids who have all different disabilities, and some really without disabilities. I'm not entirely sure. Honestly, I've never asked because it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But he's like great friends with this kid who has really, really like he's had a really traumatic background and he's in a wheelchair and it's his little buddy. And I never really hear anything about it except that that's his little friend, you know? And it's because he doesn't know any different. And so I think that it's really important that we start that culture. Now, but specifically, that's sort of the easy, not easy part because you have to have a culture. Um, but starting it within a district or within a school is hard. Now, with behaviors, that's always the question from teachers and what to do. And unfortunately, I've never had, and this is what everyone comes to, right? They always want to know, what do I do? How do I fix it? How do I solve it? And there isn't an easy answer. I mean, Kayla, you were a teacher. There's not like a one size fits all.
Hmm.
The best thing for behavior in a classroom is culture, relationship, community, making a child who wants to be there. If your kid wants to be in the classroom and the kids want him to be there and everyone's working together, it goes so much better. Obviously, there's so much more to it. There's a behavior support plan, there's the IEP
Yeah.
that goes along with it if the kid has that, and follow it, ask for help, ask like just keep asking for help, ask the parents for what they know, work together. But I was sitting in a classroom, I have to tell you, this is like I'm sitting in a classroom, this kid asked for his break. The teacher, the whole class cheered for him when he asked for it, and then the teacher made him wait,
Oh my gosh.
which is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But that's what happens, right? The kids kind of know, even if you don't tell them because you can't share like certain pieces of confidential information, they
Yeah.
know because they see him asking and they see him doing the right thing, and it happens. That
Yeah.
kind of stuff happens, and it's so fun to watch that happen. You build that community.
Yeah. When you said that like you want them to want to be in the classroom, my in my head, what I pictured was a teacher being like, "Yeah, but I don't want them in the classroom." And
Well, you
I feel
can't fix
like
that, can you?
that is literally like that is where the problem is. Like whenever
Yeah.
people are like, "Well, the kid's just too hard, they need to be in a special ed room." And I'm like, if you instead just like wanted them to be in your room,
Yep.
I can promise you it's gonna get easier. Like they're gonna want to be there. Like they're gonna want to learn. Like and they're it's
They
I think
know when you don't want them there. They
everything you said
know.
was perfect.
But they know if you don't want them there. They know.
Yeah.
Even if you've never said it out loud, they know.
And I mean, I don't know, I have nothing to back this up, but I would say like students with disabilities, and I'm gonna say like re especially with like significant disabilities, they are extensive support needs. There we go.
Yep.
Um, I feel like they can see through people's BS like so much quicker. Like, and I think that's why I loved working in like a special ed classroom that was like an extensive support needs classroom was
Yeah.
that like if we had a substitute, like a para sub come in or an adult, like a teacher that they didn't like you knew right away. You knew that they didn't like them. Even no matter what fake persona they tried to have, and, trying to come in and connect with kids, it's like, nope, they know, man.
Didn't
Get
buy
out of
it.
here. So I have to say, I really love that. I would so much rather someone genuinely like be an ass, like if that's
Right.
genuinely who they are, than like coming in and being fake and then not being able to like have that connection, which is
Yeah.
important. Okay, we are about to go, but I end all my podcast episodes with a tarot card reading.
I love
Are
that.
you cool with that?
Of course.
Cool. So you just get to ask a question, any question. It does not need to be related to this. It could even just be, how is my year gonna be? How is my weekend gonna be?
Oh, I like that. How is my year going to be? I'll take that.
Okay. So you tell me when to stop shuffling.
Okay, stop.
Gosh.
Oh, wait, that was a bad
Ah.
time. Sorry.
Still stop? You feel good
Yeah.
here? You got the Empress.
Okay.
It is a very cute cat with like rings on her ears and they
I
got
like it.
flowers. This looks good. I would say this looks like a very positive card.
I like it.
Um, okay. Oh, here she is. Okay, beauty and abundance. The Empress's crown of 12 stars connects, oh yeah, 12 stars, connects her to a mysterious world, but she is also grounded and will share her bounty of catnip and rainbows with you. Just don't pet her tum-tum.
Okay.
Dive into your imagination and create beautiful things. Your loving presence is a comfort to others. Everything you've ever dreamed of is about to come true.
I love it.
Wow.
I will take that.
That is a super positive card.
I will take that. I'm a big fan.
I don't feel like I've ever seen this one either. That's a really cute one.
Oh, I
Well,
like
oh my
it.
gosh, congratulations. What an awesome year you're about to have.
Well, thank you. I will sign up for that one.
Yeah, well, so if anybody wants to connect with you, is the best way through like social media?
Yeah, so I have a website, disabilityedpros.com, or my Instagram, disabilityedpros. I have a YouTube channel. I haven't been posting lately just because I've been super busy, but I'm hoping to get back to that, and making some videos, longer form videos there. But yeah, Instagram and my website are probably the best.
Awesome. And I'll put that all in the show notes for everybody.
Okay.
And thank you so much, Diana, for being here.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you, everybody, for joining today. If you liked this episode, the best thing that you can do is like or share or review my podcast to just get this information out to more people. I am so thankful for every person who has listened to these episodes this last year of me figuring out this podcast life. Part of me keeps thinking, should I keep going? But information keeps happening that I just feel like needs to be talked about, and we need to just be informed. So this is what I'm going to continue doing. Also, for just people who are here, my oldest is about to start kindergarten, and almost every person who is going to school with us at this school has told me that they're excited for me to be a part of the PTA, which I have not said that I was going to do, but I was thinking about it today. And I mean, I never said I was going to do it, but I know my personality. I know I'm going to be involved with it. But it made me think about other I've never really been involved in the PTA other than as a teacher communicating with the parents in the PTA. But I never went to meetings or anything. I never was really that much a part of it other than connecting with them about how to make sure things are accessible for my students. So I'm really excited to actually get involved in the PTA. And I can just say, as like a little behind the scenes, you are going to be getting the first look into that because that will be starting next year, school year. So that is everything for today. Next week, I will be interviewing Angela Harris. You might know her on TikTok, and she is an educator that I know is going to be educating me. So get ready for round two. Thank you so much for being here. Inclusion starts with you, and I just want to help. Have a good day.